Holy smokes, that worked. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to LunarCrush Live. We did this a while back. We're bringing it back, and we want to have some fun with it. And today, I'll be bringing up Mariano, aka the Trading Parrot, and haven't talked to him in a minute. So we'll go through a little bit of what it's been like for him as a technical trader, bot trader in the bear market. I'll ask all sorts of dumb questions about how he does his charting and what it all means. So hopefully we'll be bringing it to you guys. And if you're listening and you're out there, we do not take payment for this show. So check out lunarcrush.com. $8 a month, guys. Get in there. There's a discount code YouTube25, and you can get 25% off. And with that, we'll bring the man up. What's up, Mariano?
Hey,
Morning. Good evening for you. How you been, buddy?
good evening. Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm very excited to be invited to Lunar Crush live stream. I mean, I've been a fan of Lunar Crush. You know me since the beginning. Lots of different long story with Lunar Crush.
Yeah, I mean, man, you've been working, with the API. You've been working with a lot of stuff for a while. And I know we got Twitter DMs, we got Telegram groups, we've got, different things that we've always kind of shot back and forth over the last couple of years. You've helped us, even with our API and kind of bringing the right data into place. And so always appreciate that feedback, from you guys and your team. And so it's been good. It's been a great collaboration. I mean, so some first stuff from you. I mean, how have you been? Like, what was the bear market like for you? It was like, dude, this is like a 2.5 year bear market. I posted some stuff. I was like, I think it was like, a 900, like 700 days or 780 days of just down.
Yeah, yeah. Well, lots of stories. Literally, I could go on and on and on with different stories, but also lots of lessons. Lessons that cost money, but that are, we could say, priceless as well, because in the future those lessons are making you more profitable, right?
Yeah.
Stories related to trades I took by the end of the the bull market, where I was still bullish on some things that I shouldn't have been. All these stories about starting to hold coins that you think that you marry some coins, you start thinking, oh, these coins
Totally.
are just fantastic and they're
Yeah.
going to just continue running forever because the use case, the functionality, blah, 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 blah. And the
And then
people that
Slurf
have,
comes along.
yeah. And then you hear all the people that had been for many more cycles. I mean, it was my first bear market in the crypto space, and I heard all these horror stories that nothing survives. No altcoin survives. If you're going to hold anything down, just hold Bitcoin or just USDT, ideally, because everything is going to do 70-80% down. And I was listening to these stories and trying to focus just on the hottest coins during the biggest dumps, and at the same time trying to manage my bots to handle those situations. And one of the biggest lessons I learned during the bear market is, no matter how much deviation you put into this DCAing, there's no way out. Some coins are just gonna crash so big without any dead cat bounce, without any move up to allow you to exit. And even if you're averaging down, you just end up inheriting a red bag that you just either sell at a loss, or like me, that I held a bunch of coins for 2 years. Over 2 years, I was in a loss with Rune, with a bunch of other coins from the bear market that I was in love. I was like, just thinking they were going to continue running. And and I ended up being able to sell just late 2023. And that for me was a big lesson.
Yeah, it's about lessons. There is some interesting psychology around that, and I listen to a lot of the VCs talk about their funds and that they raise, and it's very similar. Where and
Mm.
Tim Draper says this too, where it's like people end up kind of holding on to the losers and selling the winners too early. Where what you should really be doing is selling these losers right away and
Yeah.
doubling down on the winners. Because a lot of times I think the psychology is people think, oh man, I got it, we'll say at $1 and now it's at $2. Like I paid $1 for it. I don't want to pay two for it. And then it's at four. Right.
Mm.
That's why a lot of the way that these funds are structured is most of the money's for follow-on capital, right?
Yeah.
It kind of sets you up to say, hey, you have to reinvest in your winners to kind of maintain that level. And so
Yeah.
it's a hard but I mean, in practice too, it's very hard in trading because it's a little bit, it's just you versus the world and you versus the market. Did
True.
you have any stories around just like did you get like washed out like hard on anything or just like liquidated hard on anything or just like you just shut the
Oh
laptop
yeah.
or you turn it off and you're just like I gotta walk outside?
Yeah, no. Yeah, yeah, true. Absolutely true. I mean, I think most people that join any bot platform like Three Commas, one of the most tempting things to do is to go high on leverage and at the same time combine that with a bot that has many levels buying to the downside. We call that it has different names. Some people, we were calling it back in the day a Martin bot, but it's basically just a martingale bot buying down, and some people are using 30%, 60, 50, 60% to the downside and doubling down. And at some
Mhm.
point in the bear market, that thing is a recipe for a big disaster. Of course, during the bull market, if you manage to run that and be good a little bit in technicals to think that maybe the market is a little bit overheated and you switch off the bot, a bot like that, it can be life changer. I heard stories of people in my channel using my bots. One dude bought a castle in France. Two people bought houses in Spain with the bots,
Wow.
and I visit some of them, and I met some of those families, and they were literally inviting me to come home, visit the family. We owe you a house, things like this. It was really,
Like, I'll just take a
uh,
car. You guys wanna send a car my way, just like with just, start small.
yeah. But also some horror stories, right? So sometimes I also made some calls and I say, guys, I'm taking profits. The market is too overheated. I sold half of my Bitcoin at 69, and I told people I'm selling half just because I think this is not going to carry on. And that was another big lesson, because whenever now I have conviction in closing down a deal just because I think there's just too many indications that we're going to have a massive pullback, I completely changed my approach. Like, for example, last month, I sold all my Bitcoin at 73K, and I posted that publicly. And I say without any shame against all people and all haters that I'm going to sell all my Bitcoin. Not a single bit of Bitcoin was in my account. And then after that, it went to 73.5, and the rest is story. But that was the first time that I have enough conviction and enough confidence in what I'm doing to do something like that. I wouldn't advise anybody to do that, right? So if you have
Yeah.
fears on the market and you think it's not going to continue running, maybe take partial profits. But I wanted for the first time to be right and to actually sell it, just because I was hating the fact that at 69 I just sold half and I had to run the other half all the way
Yeah.
down
Which
to
69 would have been a
17,000.
great call. 69 would have been a great call to sell all of it either way. So
Yeah,
let's talk
yeah,
about that for a second because there's a lot of different schools of thought around what type of trader you can be or what type of investor you can be. Most people, it's like you just buy and hold. And like, I think there's a
yeah,
reason that most people's, most of like at least America's wealth is held in, insurance products and 401ks. It's because people can't touch it. Right. And most
yeah.
people can't trade like that. But let's talk about that because a lot of times people will be like, man, why would you ever sell any Bitcoin? Just hold it forever. But you're
Mm,
kind of in a class of investor where you're watching things all day. You're gaining a higher level of conviction. You're making a call like that. I mean, it's just like there's definitely like understand who you are as an individual and
mm.
understand if you're going to be paying attention to when it's time to get back in.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't advise people to do this
Right.
specifically for that. So um, My channel is half to do with trading bots, and more recently becoming more of a manual trading channel. And even though I try to simplify things and I try to give uh, very easy to understand tools for people to make calls. I don't give the direct advice. Okay, guys, sell here. I just say what I'm gonna do, whether for the good or the bad. I have made some bad calls, but I try to educate people to understand when, in the long run, you're risking too much. Because there's a lot of people. Let's face it. There's a lot of people that are considering, when we start making a new all-time high, that's the best time to buy.
It's
And,
wild.
and it's crazy, but it's just the human nature. In average, most people are going to feel the urge to buy the top and to sell the bottom.
Yeah.
And I try to make a difference with that, whether it's with the calls I do for swing trades, which are just daily trades. Sometimes we hold for 10 days and then we sell and we just grab a nice move. And some other times I'm looking into the weekly. I always keep an eye on the weekly to see how we're doing, uh, in terms of a month, in a timing, or maybe in a year time, how are we going to be doing?
Yeah, maybe we can dig into that a little bit. Like what are you looking at on the weekly, the yearly? Are you like, is it an innate thing for you where you're kind of feeling out these levels of the market? I mean, you're watching it all day, every day. There's also like time zone difference, right? And
Mm,
like which waking hours you actually are awake to follow the
yeah.
market. I mean, how are you thinking about some of those little nuances? It's like sometimes you're just watching it, and you're like, wow, this is an entry, I'm going, or this is a sell point, I'm getting out.
Uh-huh. Um, It's interesting because it's been a journey of 3 years. And the
Mhm.
way I started and the way I approach crypto in the early days for me in crypto was all to do with engineering, software, even, artificial intelligence, whatever engineering things, tools, the same way I have done in all my career as an engineer. That was the natural way of approaching it. And I was just watching people doing live TA and being impressed, and being thinking, how come they think things so easily, and they just have this idea that you have to buy here. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But then I started creating very complex sort of indicators using Pine Script on TradingView, and and I was pretty much becoming more popular because of my complexity rather than my accuracy. So I was always the difficult kind of indicator to understand. And in the past year, I made a full, 180 degrees flip, and I decided to stick with the very basic. My challenge was, I want to educate people on how to trade with something as simple as RSI, because I
Mm.
truly believe that tools are just tools. With any tool, you can use it good or use it bad. And some people say RSI is terrible. How come you're using RSI? That's from the 60s, from the 70s. It's completely obsolete. And I completely disagree. You can do great things with very simple tools. And in this case, with the RSI, we've been doing great. And I just keep laughing about all the haters, because we keep doing one call after the other on the weekly, on the daily, and on the 4 hourly, um, using this very basic and very well known. Could say the RSI is the top one indicator best known by traders, not necessarily the most loved one, but is the most popular one. And
Maybe
the
maybe
trick,
you could tell us what it is. I think a lot of people heard like relative strength index, RSI, and if you want to
yeah,
show some stuff too, we can pop it up. But maybe just talk a little bit about what is it, how do you use it, and why is it maybe working right now for you?
So the way I approach the RSI is very simple. It's an oscillator. So in basic words, it goes up and down within a fixed range. In this case, between 0 and 100. And people know that RSI is supposed to tell you just one thing: that if you are on the top end, you are overbought, If you are in the lower end, you're oversold. But that is not necessarily the most helpful way of interpreting RSI. And definitely, I agree with the haters that if you use it in that way, that's just a recipe for disaster. In practice, that way of using the RSI only works if a market is sideways, because if it continues going sideways, you can just buy some local tops, sell some local tops and buy some local bottoms, and that will work. But if the market starts trending, it can remain in the overbought area for very long or in
Yeah,
the
you get
oversold
burnt.
area for. So that doesn't really work. So how am I using the indicator? What I'm doing is I'm building channels, and I'm building channels up and channels down. And I'm basing my forecasts on the assumption that once a channel is done going up, it should start building a channel going down. And the opposite when you're going down. Once you're done going down, you're going to start going up. So I start looking into breakouts from these channels. For example, in January, we were following this channel and we were going up. So I put up this line here and I started looking for bounces on top of that trend line. And once we got this breakdown here, I started saying, okay, guys, get ready to start building a channel going down in this direction. And that is not crazy thing to say. If you follow the RSI, it's constantly doing that. It's not just something completely unexpected. So once you break that, the chances are that you're going to start building this move here. You can bounce back up, retest, sure, that's going to send the price higher. But as long as it doesn't go higher than the previous high, the chances continue to increase to build a channel down. And we make a call um, around here. That was the top because that was my retest. So 73K was the retest of the breakdown. And I put these two lines in this direction at that point in time. And I started expecting these moves in this way. And the opposite goes now in May. Once I saw this breakout, we started building this and started saying, okay, we're going on the way up. And some people might say, well, you might get just to here. Yeah, sure. We assume all those things, all those risks, and we treat them accordingly day by day when we review the state of the daily and the 4 hour. And that's pretty much the kind of the approach with the RSI in a very simplified way. And of course, ignoring the fact that we are not just looking at the RSI. So it's kind of cheating a little bit because we look a lot at liquidity, we look at what
Yeah,
the whales are doing, we look at liquidity from different sources, including the order book live, LunarCrush information, socials, on-chain data. So it's not just like we are making dumb decisions based on the RSI. The RSI confirms momentum, but momentum is not everything.
right. No, I love this, and you kind of like that was gonna be my next question was what else are you kind of looking at here? Like it seems like this is kind of confirming, and this is almost like your one of your final checks to say yes or no. Like I feel like all those other indicators are giving you kind of like a psychological or emotional feel towards the direction of the
Yeah,
market, but like
yeah.
you're not gonna make like a major decision without confirming it on this RSI. Is that fair?
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
In the last 2 days, my video was saying there's a massive buy signal based on the socials,
That's what I was
based
saying. Is
on
your stack back in? Is that full sell that's you made at 73? Is the full stack back in, or did you go half in?
on the 73K.
Well, you
I
said
sold.
you sold at 73 and now you're
Yeah,
seeing the upward channel created now. Have you started buying?
I started buying, but I didn't do the opposite. I didn't rebuy everything, and
Gotcha.
well, you that was potentially could become a bad call. Let's say we go now to 90K. I'm gonna be the first guy to tell you I'm really sad that that missed that bit of the bull market. I managed to profit from the rest, but I missed maybe the last bit, and that's a risk that I am willing to take, just because I don't see the market as you missed everything or you made everything. Is kind of a shades of gray, and the risk so it is. So the risk at the moment it's way higher than we were at 17K. At
Mhm.
17K, I just bought like 3, 4, 5 Bitcoin and I didn't care. Uh, and then I started selling at 35, and then at 35 started becoming guilty. Why am I selling? This thing continues running, and it continued
Yep.
for a full year.
I think that's a good point though that you made there, and I use that a lot with people is you're never gonna sell at the very, very top. If you are, it's very rare. Like even you making the call at 73, it's like, you didn't sell at 70 at the very, very top all-time high, right? It's very
Yeah,
rare to even have any shares or coins or whatever it may be, like clear at those numbers. All you're trying to do is get out somewhere near the top and get in somewhere near the bottom consistently,
yeah,
and
that's
that's
true.
what you're looking for. One thing I never, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, I don't understand that people do is like you're saying they buy these, we run up to 73K. It's like at least buy on days where it's all red, and at least sell. If you kind of don't know what you're doing, you're trying to trade, it's like at least sell on a day that's up 10% and buy on
Yeah,
a day that's down versus buying on, it's like people just see the green and they think it's higher. It's like just wait for a red day. At least just do that. And you know that, hey, if I bought in 8%, at least I'm 8% from where the previous mark was and I'm in.
yeah,
It doesn't make
yeah.
sense to me.
I guess during the bear market, I started understanding a lot better why people do that. And I remember when I joined crypto in 2020, uh, I remember people telling me, uh, just sell it all, and because it's gonna dump heavy. And during 2020, I just kept adding to my stacks of all different sorts of altcoins. I bought like 20 different altcoins that I was bullish on, and I rode the way up. And I definitely, that was my main source of profits during that period. All those altcoins that I bought very cheap, including Ethereum and Cardano, XRP, whatever. Some of them were losers, but most of them did incredibly well. And I was listening to people saying, "Sell it, sell it, sell it." And now I understand. When you're in a bear market, you made that small profit of 5%, and you're constantly with this stress that they're gonna dump on you. Because that's the fact. During the bear market, they're constantly dumping. There's a tiny bit of profit and then dumps lower. Tiny bit of profit, dumps lower. So you really need to be very good at swing trading to go against the trend and time those bottoms and times those tops to make some profits being long. In the bear market, hopefully you're shorting, and even shorting is difficult. Everything is difficult in the bear market, much more difficult than now. And during the bull market, yes, holding on to it, waiting for some green, you're going to do much better. So that advice during the bull market is spot on, in my opinion. Just hold it and wait for another green. Most likely, the trend will continue, and you're going to find another green day, and you're going to exit. By the way, right now at the 73K, there's a lot of expectation from short-term holders to unload coins that they bought almost near the all-time high. And so now the biggest question is, when we reach that point, who's going to win that arm wrestling between those short-term holders that are itching for selling their holding, thinking that that was the top, versus all the newcomers that want to trade? So very interesting.
You know for a fact that all the people selling right there are retail folks that got in late, and then they're just gonna wait to get their money back, and then they're gonna sell.
Yeah, yeah,
Wall Street's gonna pick up those bags, and then it's gonna run another 35%. Like, it's just gonna
yeah.
happen over and over.
Yeah, and actually here I have the long-term, short-term holders, and a very interesting pattern that is fascinating is to see how the long-term holders are starting to pick up in their accumulation, whereas the short-term holders are starting to sell. They're constantly
It's like
doing
clockwork.
the opposite that they should be doing. And when you find a bottom, you see that long-term holders start accumulating, they gain confidence during the dump, and the short-term holders are saying, okay, that's it. Let's just go home, sell everything. And they sell at the worst time. Look at how they are selling here as we rally back up. And right now, long-term holders buying. And that to me was part of my decision, of my bias, to think that momentum on the RSI daily my win to the upside and against my interest. I want Bitcoin to go lower. I want to buy it really cheap. I don't have enough if we go to 150K. But this kind of things start giving you confidence.
What do you say to the people where you say, I want to buy it really cheap? And like we would probably say, you and I would say, hey, 57 felt cheap, right? But other people would be like, man, I missed it at 20. So like 57 is expensive. It's like, well, no, it's relatively cheap right now.
I think there's a timing in the bull market. It, if people people are busy, and people are not as lucky as us that we are all day into this and we have the chance to meet different people, different opinions, and educate ourselves deeply into the crypto space. Most people, they pick random YouTube channels and they watch meme coins, they watch things that are exciting but can get you really burnt. And if you uh, educate yourself, one of the biggest things that you need to learn is about the cycle of 4 years and some things that maybe you cannot take fully for granted but are very high likely to happen. You have the halving event, which by the way we made an all-time before the halving for the first
Yeah.
time. Well, that's an anti pattern, but it happened. um, and there are some other things like the year after the halving, expecting to see in some cycles we saw a second top. As that's kind of something that Bitcoin could do this time. So we could have a retracement, we could have a period of very boring, and then continue and do a second top. Of course, another theory is that we are just going to continue going higher. Whichever is the option, um, you need to manage how you're going to deploy funds to take advantage of either circumstances. Like if you go all in now, you need to make peace with yourself that there might be a pullback coming. Maybe we're going to 48, maybe to 42. And if that happens, how are you going to feel with your coin bought at 64 today? If you're happy to do that and you think we are definitely going to go for 100 or over 100K, uh, then it's fine. I'm personally not happy with that because I don't
Mhm.
take for granted we're going to go beyond 100K this cycle. I don't. At this point in time, uh, I rather accumulate it, accumulating gently and looking for good entries and swing trading. That's my focus in the past month has been mostly swing trading. Um, but if you enter, if you take for granted as well that we're going to 48, then what is the risk? The risk is that we might not go there. We might just continue going up. Maybe next week we are at 75K and we don't look back for a while. And if that's the case, are you going to be happy not holding anything? So what if you find a middle ground and you make a plan for both scenarios? So if we cross 75K and you cross going up with 30% allocation and you leave the rest, and then there is a pullback and you might use that for something else. And plan B is uh, we go lower and then you use the rest. That 70% can be used in different places at different points that are key levels. That could be a plan, not financial advice, but that's how I will approach it if I was really itchy to rebuy all the Bitcoin I sold.
So you made a really good call at 73 when a lot of people were calling for 150 for 225. Even 100 was just another 30% from where we were, and we had already, done over 100% pretty quickly there from January.
Yeah.
What was the conviction around that? Obviously we talked through all these charts and you kind of gave it a feel for it, but like, man, there was a lot of people calling for at least 100 in that cycle. You've got the Bitcoin ETF just screaming inflows, unbelievable. All signs point to yes. What told you no?
I think there was a cherry on top of the cake, but if I had to summarize it, I'm not gonna give you the full list of indicator because that's gonna be overwhelming. But
Yeah.
I remember at 69K, um, in the previous cycle, my conviction came from around 5 to 10 indicators. Some of them I created, some of them are well known. And I just said, okay, I have this list, guys. This goes into the newsletter. Everybody's informed. You make your call, whether you want to sell everything right now at 69, or you want to sell half like me, or you just want to ignore it because you think we're going to 100K. That's totally on you. And I did that with 10 indicators, no more than that. During the bear market, I had a lot of spare time to build more things. I mean, you guys also build a
Yeah.
crazy lot amount of things during the bear market. It seems to be the thing to do during the bear market. Just build,
Yep.
continue building. Um, I built over 100 different indicators, and I learned crazy lots of things from different amazing people in the crypto space. And the decision to sell 73K came from over 50 different reasons, from on-chain data, from, I can give you some examples, like the golden ratio touched precisely the level that was 73K. And it was there from 3 years ago saying that was going to be the top. Then we had also the amount of people in profit. When you have 99.6% of all wallets in profit, that is a top.
You're gonna
And
have some sell pressure there no matter what.
yeah, I mean, what are you going to do with 99.6% of the people, everybody in green? And it cannot continue going higher because to continue going higher, you need new people joining the space. And well, my bet was that possibly there won't be enough. And I look back in time and I couldn't find any time that we went that high in profit. Not in 2017, not in 2021, nowhere. So combining with all the other different indicators, saying sell from well before and sustaining that sell signal from on-chain, from technical analysis, from the sentiment, I say, okay, if I'm wrong here, whatever. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
sell,
you made
and
peace with it.
I'm just gonna sell it right now, guys. I'm selling 73K. It's on my Twitter. It's pinned to the top. Do whatever you want. And I started receiving loads of engagement. Half of the people saying, "Oh, really? Don't you think that we're gonna make it to 80 or to 85?" I say, "Yeah, maybe yes, but I don't know. I'm just gonna sell it. There's too many signals. I'm overwhelmed with the amount of information on my desk saying sell, and I'm just gonna sell." And some haters as well saying, "You're crazy. The,
Oh,
the,
of
the
course, of
narrative
course.
has changed,
If you're on
and it's
social media,
gonna."
you're gonna have some haters just in general.
It's true.
Do you go short ever? Or, like, what
Not
percentage of your trades are short?
very little percent, and I tend to do shorts when I have a long, and that long is going well into the red, and I didn't manage my risk, and I was just had conviction, that emotional thing that tells you, okay, just buy it. Okay, buy. And I leave there in a wallet. And then I look back and I say, gosh, this is not going great. Then I grab that liquidity. I do something that I do not recommend people doing, which is you grab that liquidity, you put it in coin M, anywhere that you can use it as collateral. And then I start using that liquidity to take some shorts. And with those shorts, I kind of mitigate that effect of the coin going down. So I sometimes leave a position as a hedge, doing a short, and that kind of locks down the loss. So if I'm, let's say, 20% down, and I'm thinking, oh, we just lost this level, that is ugly. It's looking really ugly. It looks like it's going to leave me at a 30% loss. Then I short from there, and I leave my short open with a stop loss to the upside, and it starts coming down and it locks down my loss. I try
Yeah.
not to be very greedy. Some other people revenge trade these kind of things, and I wouldn't say that goes very well often.
That sounds just like a terrible like, revenge anything, just, like, out of anger and spite. Just doesn't seem like you're going into a scenario with a clear mind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but in fact, I don't short very often. Although I give the calls for shorts, so I tell people this is a level, that we just lost, and it looks like a high likely scenario for a short. I personally don't take many of those shorts. Shorting is higher risk than longing, um, and I think
100%. Harder on your heart too.
yeah,
Stress
it's
levels,
true. It's
infinite
true.
loss versus infinite gain on the other side. What about leverage? Because sometimes I think about Bitcoin, and it's obviously it's like if you want to be all about Bitcoin, you just want to trade Bitcoin. You're looking at already 30 indicators, and one coin is enough, or one asset class is enough for you to invest in. And a lot of people will say like, well, I want to buy Solana because Solana, has like a higher beta than Ethereum. When the market runs, I want that. And then other people are saying, I want to buy meme coins on Solana because when Solana runs, those meme coins are going to run even higher. And to me, that's just like a leverage trade on Bitcoin in some sort of way, right? Especially if
It's
things
true.
are staying as correlated as they are right now. But you could also just say, hey, I'm just going to trade Bitcoin on leverage and do
Yeah.
the same thing and be in an asset that So I don't know. What do you how do you think about like leverage? Like how much more conviction do you need to enter a trade like that?
I think the alts in Bitcoin um, are correlated. There's some correlation, but they are not necessarily doing the same thing at the same time. So sometimes they're just delayed in what they do. There's something called the flow of the money in crypto, where people say the first one to make the move to the upside should be Bitcoin. And then that is going to flow into Ethereum, and then into the top 10, and then into the lower cap. And I think if you understand that and you have practice this sort of thing, because there's a lot of edge cases, there's a lot of caveats in this approach, but if you master this and you understand what Bitcoin is doing, so you can keep one eye looking at what Bitcoin is doing, and then with the other eye looking at the alts. I think that's the option that I believe most Americans are using to gain some leverage in their trading, because the alts move, as you said, a lot more than Bitcoin. And since they don't have access, at least officially, to leverage, the only option left for many countries, not just US, is to trade those altcoins and to go lower cap to gain more. But it's a high risk thing, because Bitcoin sometimes pumps, and then it pumps, it reverts, and then people are just getting excited because Bitcoin pump, and they say, okay, I'm gonna miss the train with this low cap. I'm gonna just jump in, and you jump in, and suddenly Bitcoin reverses more than 50% the move, and that's bearish. And then everybody sells the old coin, and you get burned. So it's very high risk. In my opinion, trading with a little bit of leverage, Bitcoin, as long as you know what you're doing. So let's say you know what you're doing with your alts in terms of technicals, then you know what you're doing with Bitcoin. In that case, I will prefer to go with Bitcoin and a little bit of leverage, just because I I have more experience looking at Bitcoin. I have definitely spent more than 90% of my time just looking at Bitcoin. And more recently, I started doing more TA on the altcoins, just because of popular demand. People that join the channel
Yeah.
enjoy saying, okay, enough with Bitcoin. Can you tell us what's going to happen, to Near, what's going to happen to Solana, Phantom? And then I have a look. I'm happy to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you say, "Hey, look where the market's going," when I think about even when the Bitcoin spot ETF was approved, Ethereum moved up, right? Not
Yeah.
Bitcoin. And it was because people are like, "Oh, if Bitcoin is approved, Ethereum could have a chance," right? And that was the trade that day. Which a lot
Yeah.
of people would say, "Oh, Bitcoin spot ETF approved, it's gonna moon." It didn't, and then we went sideways or down, for a little bit until we really saw what those inflows and the appetite looked like. That's what I think drives people just like mad about trading, or even days, like we used to be trading stocks a lot, and you'd have these like awesome earnings beats, and the stock would go down because in one corner of the report, it was like, the battery business wasn't doing as good. And it's like, well, they just crushed earnings. Like, isn't this how it works? And it's like, no, that's not at all how it works. You're kind of like skating to where the puck is going for a hockey reference here. Maybe we can dive a little bit into just like where we are, like right now on Bitcoin. Like, what are you seeing? And then maybe if there are some alts that you're kind of taking a peek at too, because I could totally understand from your perspective. Hey, I've got this kind of interesting model with RSI that works for Bitcoin, and maybe like, are there some patterns as well on some of the? It
Mhm.
sounds like layer ones, like larger layer ones that you're looking at, like probably top 50 is what you're applying some of this to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on demand. I keep track of the best performing coins. I use a website called the Altcoin Season. I think it's this one here, and it shows you the top 50 performers over the last season. A season is 90 days, and it compares their performance against Bitcoin. So Bitcoin
Mm,
is somewhere here in the middle, and whichever position Bitcoin takes, that gives the number of the index. In this case, we are at 41. So we are 41% here in terms of performance of Bitcoin located. Everything at the right hand side is underperforming, and everything above is overperforming. So I had kept track during these past 2-3 months of these coins, and I know they have, some of them have performed incredibly well, and they might be about to top, but these ones, if we do TA on them, what we normally do is we try to see which ones of them are still due for continuation.
right.
Just because there's a lot of eyes on these coins right here. Those are risky, but at the same time very rewarding.
I
Uh,
like this. Is that bit tensor like almost towards the bottom there? So I couldn't see it on that chart. Like, what were some
uh,
of those coins that were like below on the bar graph, the
which ones
vertical?
you mean?
Yeah, like what were some of the ones at the bottom there? Is that Sui,
Sui, Arv, Tau,
Arbitrum?
Optimism, yeah,
Arbitrum, it's like
Optimism, Injective.
underperforming like crazy. Injective had what, I was looking at Injective, it actually, like, if you move this out to like a 1-year chart, Injective might be like at the top though. Because I know they just had like a huge run and it's just kind of been like not
Yeah,
performing.
possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but relative to the rest of the coins, so if
Yeah.
you name any other coin that is not in this list, it's possibly some, it could be even a gem that hasn't done its thing in this particular cycle yet, and it's about to bust. Who knows? But
Hmm.
I think it's one of these good recipes to keep an eye on these coins. I do the same with altcoin, with old rank, with Galaxy Score. Uh, I really look a lot into the hourly movers for my TA. There's lots of opportunities there. Or, for example, I look into the relative volume, which is another indicator that belongs to TradingView, and I use their screener to sort by relative volume. And that is telling you there's this coin that, relative to the market cap and the volume that there is in the day, the proportion is huge in terms of volume. And that means that there's a lot of traders there. And of
Yeah.
course, the more retail traders there is in a coin, the most opportunities there are. But going back into the what's for the market, I think that was your first
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
Joe.
Like, where are we at today? Like, what are you looking at, like, literally for the rest of today? Or what did you look at during the day for you today, on Bitcoin? And just what is your
Uh-huh.
thought around, like you said, like you're starting to maybe think about moving some of the stack back in a little bit at at these levels, or are we going to be range bound? Like, what are you thinking?
So for looking into what's going to happen in the next 3 to 6 months, I look into the weekly. Of course, I also look into the monthly, but more often I'm focusing on the weekly. And on the weekly, I have currently mixed bags. If you asked me 1 week before, I will have said we are well in the red and we are going to have to go even lower. Just to give you some background, this is my RSI on the weekly. And when we were here with this breakout, I officially say bull market is starting. Let's build the channel to the upside and let's start looking for these bounces. So we were, when we reached this top here, We started building this, expecting this one here, a bounce, and we started building all this structure. And within the global structure of the RSI, we also build local supports. So lines that are inside the global pattern, like this one here, just to give you an example. But the most significant one that we have seen since April is the dotted one. And we lost that on the weekly right after coming below this heavy resistance, which is 84 on the weekly RSI. We only are above that a handful of times every cycle. And when we come back below 84 on the weekly, we usually have a decent pullback. So based on that observation, my expectations were that once we were here at 73K, that we were going to break below it and start building a channel to the downside from here. And I started calling this circle here, and I've been calling it for months. This is home. We need to go back home. We need to retest this support and then look up for continuation. Of course, when we get home, we get drunk and we start getting sick here and we break below it, that's where we need to start getting worried, at least in the sense that the second top of this cycle might come way later.
Right.
But if we hold at home here, that's healthy. And let me tell you one thing. Thanks to the RSI uses the close of the candle, it doesn't use the low of the candle. And on the week of the 6th of May, we were monitoring the RSI, and the RSI was almost touching our support here. And that same week went above it. And that happened thanks to the current move. But at some point, we were touching this at around 55.
It's like a
And that
phantom
week,
bottom to the RSI almost.
yeah, so I felt like, oh God, this is phenomenal. We are touching our support. So the checkbox to say, have we tested support? At least once? Yes, we did. We didn't hold there. We didn't close the week there, sure, but we touch it. So I consider myself, uh, you know, satisfied with that. And I'm saying that it's a mixed bag because the stochastic RSI is in this current week building a bullish cross. And we are there and we already touched the support. So my
Right.
mixed bag is sure, we are now building some momentum to the upside. This could be a breakout to the upside, a local one. Let me explain why it's a local. It's a local because if I connect this to this, like that, we are above that local trend line. I'm already constructing it in my brain, and I'm
Yep.
thinking, okay, this is above that, so that is bullish. And this guy here, sure, this is a bullish crossover, so that's also bullish. And we are here using a reverse engineer RSI that is giving me what? It's giving me the price levels that are corresponding to this yellow line here. That yellow line, we have a reverse engineer RSI in the chart that is all this orange and red, and we are bouncing from that. So that looks awesome. You can see here that
Gotcha.
the low was below it and bounced from there. So that's bullish. But why am I still bearish? Because I was still hoping that we get there and we draw a line.
The final piece to the puzzle for
The
you to
final
go all
piece.
in.
Yeah, this was my yes. I love it.
Yeah.
We are there. Done. Fully done. So we did it. We did it half. That's why I'm half and half.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. When you zoomed into that one too, it looked like on a shorter time period that it's like we are bouncing, right? It is time to move up. And so
Yeah.
what's the it's like I and maybe you don't have an answer to this, but you've got these indicators and like we said, you're waiting for that final one. Once you
Yeah.
start to have some confirmation like to the upside, then it comes to the piece where it's like, well, what is the actual price top here? Right. And that's when you start to kind of zero in a little bit on sell levels. Does it ever like at the beginning of the picture when you've got a couple of these things and it's the reversal, I can imagine it being a very, large standard deviation to where, or what, like, a large range to where the top is, right? But
Mhm.
like, what do you have anything on here around like, okay, if we break through this 73 level, here's where we're looking next on the long-term scale? It's like, are we looking, like you said, I think you
Sure.
said earlier in the stream, 100 is the top for you.
No, that's just a psychological level
Yeah.
that many people are talking about, not particularly resonating that much with that specific number. I actually have other tools that I'm using for spotting the top. So I have two perspectives that help me working out a potential top. Of course, this is just speculative. And one of them is called the top bottom weekly overlay. So that's this one here is kind of a, how can I call it, like a Bollinger Bands, but it's not. It's one of my indicators, and you can see that it spot that top there. So now we are in the middle of the line, and the most helpful one is taking this indicator and turning it into an oscillator like this, and showing the full history of Bitcoin has been incredibly helpful. Why? Because we have an all-time resistance that we have never ever managed to overcome, and at the same time, every cycle we go and visit it at least once. And guess what? When we were at 73.5, we were a millimeter away from touching that line as well. So that this is another sell signal that I was using as part of my arsenal of things to give me conviction. And since then, it came back below here. And what I'm expecting from this is to eventually come here to test again this support, just like we have been doing since 2018, with the exception of here in 2022, and then
Was that
potentially
Black Swan FTX? Is that why you're ignoring it?
um, that's June 2022. Yeah, I don't remember if that's FTX.
I
When
thought
was
FTX was
FTX? I think it's
October,
October. I think
November.
it's a little bit later. Yeah, and so I'm expecting to see this oscillator to come here to test the support, and then go for another attempt to break this resistance. Whether this cycle there's going to be enough inflows to break this, that will be extremely bullish. That will take Bitcoin into a new era because we have
And
never broken
and
that.
what's the narrowing here? Is that like the volatility over time lessening?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So
Which
every
that's
cycle,
like very healthy to see.
yeah, it's kind of constricting. So you can see every cycle. This is cycle 1, cycle 2, cycle 3. And in every cycle, this oscillator loses the support and it starts a new channel the next cycle. So all of this is bear market and then bull market. And then new cycle, bear market, bull market, and new cycle. And there's an anomaly that is a little bit difficult to spot, but I publish it in one of my videos, which is the pattern is stay here one cycle, break, stay here the next cycle, break, stay here the next cycle. And what do you see here? We broke, right? But did we build up from here like every other time? No, we remain in the same cycle. So we
Hmm.
just made a fake out here, but we stay in the same cycle. So this cycle, 2021, and this cycle, current cycle, from the perspective of this oscillator, are the same cycle
Yeah,
somehow.
I could buy that, just because it is like FTX and everything that happened was like these major kind of black swan things that happened that broke an otherwise super bullish market and an adoption level, from an investment standpoint, a new token
Yeah.
standpoint level that was like unprecedented. I mean, crypto before AI was, it was gonna, that's where all of the money was going. I mean, all the traditional VCs that I talked to were still like, suddenly they were investing in coins like internationally, and I was like, what is going on here? And so I think it's we had some, I could definitely buy that of, hey, there's like, FTX, and what happened there was like a snake eating a way too big of a meal that had to like work its way through before now we're on the other side of this thing. So it's
Yep.
it's
Yep.
really interesting.
And the second approach to see the top of the market, by the way, I didn't give a top. So top is any time that we reach this number. So unfortunately, this oscillator is great to say we are risking too much. but it cannot anticipate necessarily how the moves are going to be, and how we're going to land the next time on the white line. It could be in 2025, but the beauty is that whenever we land here and we are touching it, I'm going to be the first one to once again be shouting in Twitter, guys, 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 guys.
It's time.
um, it's time, run through the hills. The next one is very simple, and I'm abusing RSI, I know. This cycle, we made this peak on the RSI. This is a monthly chart. The next one here, and that 73K made it to 70. So not yet, the top. So if you are one of the optimistic people, we still have room for some boring times, possibly, or a straight up to 79, or maybe later at 75. The beauty of RSI is that if we go now to 79, I've done so many calculations. So if we go now to 79, the all-time high will be less than if we let the RSI reset, and it takes very long, and then we go to 75. So don't get tricked by 75 being less than 79. That 75 later on in 2025 might mean a way higher price. And if you follow here the reverse RSI, right now getting to those levels will give us 105. But if the price comes down here and starts taking a lot of time before hitting that once again, that reverse RSI is going to get higher. So your recipe for 100K is push price higher right now. Push it higher, and that could become a blow of top too early, unhealthy. But if you let the people get wrecked, let's face it, that's what it really is. If you let all these people that bought here to sell, to capitulate, and to have a mini capitulation within the bull market, the market resets, and it's better placed for achieving a 200K. So 200K from here is very difficult, but from there, possibly.
Makes sense. It's so interesting, to see you go through all of this because a lot of people, I think they don't understand like technical analysis or TA because a lot of people are like markets are so psychological, but the way that you're approaching it, is from a psychological level because all you're trying to do is paint the picture of like the way people feel about the market through different levels and psychological levels and what's possible, and it's just a bunch of people trading, feeling out whether or not things feel overbought or oversold. And so it's like you're just trying to kind of tell that story through all of this, and there's a lot here that you have to probably keep in your head every day. I mean, man, just like even just trading Bitcoin seems like it's a lot of work for you. It's like dipping into the other stuff seems like it's like 10 times more. Like, because then it's like a narrative, it's a story that you got to keep kind of locked in your head of how
Yeah.
you feel. I think that's why you said like the plan is so important because, especially when you have money on the line, you invest in something. Like the other day I was like, which I don't do, but I was like, I was looking at those GameStop call options and I was like, I saw it at like 33 and I just knew the night before. I was like, we had day one. It's definitely going up. Like I knew for 100% fact. And I was like, the plan was to sell, the next morning, no matter what. I didn't pull the trigger. I was like, I've just, there's just too much going on. I'm already not sleeping with the two little ones. And so I was like, I'm not going for it. But I know, from trading previously is that I did have a plan that I was going to stick to no matter what, where I think some people go in and then suddenly, hey, they made the right call the first time. And then they suddenly have a new plan. Hey, it's sitting 15% higher. I just made $10,000 or whatever it is. Suddenly they go, well, 10 could be 20, 20 could be 40. And then they
No.
just lose themselves.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a recipe for disaster. I think profits are profits, and the beauty is that whatever profits you do, it means that there's more time to play in the future. You still have powder to shoot so many other times, and it's a matter as well of learning and enjoying the ride of having that time to learn. If you just burn out and break everything in just a few trades, then there's almost no option. Then I've heard so many stories of people that actually do that, and for some personalities that actually helps, breaking everything and starting from scratch, and then telling that story that they lost everything. I lost $10 million, and now I'm starting to build up from $100 and doing a side job in McDonald's. And those stories are, everybody loves those stories. But I, I tell you, when you lose a lot, it doesn't feel very good. And not all personalities are well suited for recovering from a situation like that. Most people, after a big punch in the face, they give up and they just say, "Okay, that's it for me. I'm done." If it's not the wife telling you to do so.
Can't ignore that very important factor. Ho what are I'm sure you look at and you're kinda out there looking at other people doing TA that are good that are starting to, like, get good, or you're like, "Hey, this guy or this gal does this really well." I'm impressed by that. Like, what do you notice are some of the traits in people that suddenly kind of start getting it and suddenly start trading well, or suddenly start understanding the talent a little bit more? Like, what are some of the traits or personalities like in someone you're like, oh man, this person just they tried a bunch of things, they failed a couple times and it went well, or man, I really like this other YouTube channel. Like, what do you notice in people that are kind of getting started, and like what are the similarities and maybe those things that you did when you said like, hey man, I feel like I'm actually like pretty good at this now?
I'm I'm definitely not perfect. I'm sometimes I tend to get very overcomplicated for things. Overthinking is one of my um weaknesses. I tend to take profits too early and get nervous with when I start to see too much green, just because of the recent pain from the bear market. But I noticed some patterns. Some of the traders that I have seen doing the largest life changing profits, they're not necessarily very educated people, or people that are the ones that you will say, "Oh my God, that guy is the most intelligent person on earth." They just are person that stick to a plan and that have patience to execute it the way they define initially the plan originally. And they say, once the risk is low, just gonna buy. And once the risk is high, I'm gonna sell. And I know that we hate hearing, particularly me. I mean, I look at all the indicators I have built, and I have studied crazy amounts, and it's totally true. All you have to do is listen to Benjamin Cowen to tell you when the risk is at the lowest peak, and he said it at 17K. And then once he says the risk is too high now, then you sell, and that's it. And you can just go all in with a lots of altcoins and a lots of Bitcoin, and then just wait and sit down and wait. You don't have to do anything. I admire the people that I have met that have managed to do that in front of my face, including people that were paid members. They were just telling me, um, yeah, we just broke all these levels, and you just say that there's a bunch of indicators saying buy. So yesterday I went ahead and I spent 500K in a deal, and I put leverage on it. And then I was, what? Really? You did that? Yeah. And then after 2 months, we went from 30 to 69. I was asking, how much did you make? Yeah, yeah. And I'm selling at 69 because you say sell. So I'm just following you. I just did that and I sold everything. Thanks so much for that. And I'm like, telling my wife, literally, there are dudes that are just listening to that, and they have the personality to execute it so clean and with
Yeah.
such a peace of mind, without overthinking, without thinking, but what if this, what if that? No, it's okay. There's a stop loss. I might lose 20K. It's okay. 20K can come later. I struggle to do that with large positions. I have to totally admit it.
Yeah. Do you think that knowing that the like a couple like the stories you told at the beginning where like people bought houses, is that almost as satisfying as like a really good, that's got to be as satisfying as like a really good trade and making money yourself? Like helping someone that much, like that. I mean, that's like like someone's dream came true.
It's true. I mean, the few stories that I heard from members uh, maybe really feel good, particularly the ones where people say, I didn't have the chance to do this because some other dudes did really well, but they were already in a nice life, with house here in the beach, and they just bought something else. But these people that were a family and they have kids and they move into a larger house in Spain, and then I felt really good about them. It felt like a warm feeling. Unfortunately, eh, I don't just focus on the stories of success. I try to also see how many people did bad, and I had to do loads of amendments in my approach since the last bull market. So there's a lot of mea culpa there of things that went
Yeah.
wrong, and it came from my naiveness, my ignorance, my lack of knowledge in the first market. Um, and the thing is that I cannot tolerate when I see other people doing these things and they are experienced. So they are just doing it to take the piece of people. They say, run these bots with 10% deviation and put 10x. And if it retraces, you lose everything. But they don't say that, you know? And I got burned, but they know that can happen. And some influencers, they just say that and they tell people what to do because the fees that they make from that, whether they win or not on the trade, is not important. It doesn't matter. They make more from the fees. They make 1 million from the fees, and they lose a trade of 50K. So of course they are never stressed about their deals, and they just continue to tell people to put more on the deals and on the bots and on the stuff. I'm not going to say any names, but I stopped doing that the moment I noticed I was on the wrong side. And people ask me, why are you not telling people which bots to run? Why are
Hmm.
you no longer telling specific settings for the bots? And my answer is always, the moment you share specific settings of a bot with a larger audience is the time that the alpha is dead. That moment, that bot doesn't work. So I personally wouldn't run a bot that I have shared everything about that bot ever again. And people were telling me in 2021, the most experienced bot traders, how come you're sharing everything? You tell every detail of the bot on a live stream. People are copying it. It's no longer going to be profitable. And I was saying, don't worry, there's not enough volume from people watching my channel. Eventually, my channel got 30,000 people and the bots stopped performing. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, that's the end of the road for these public bots. I'm going to keep them quiet. And it started becoming still very difficult. That's why I went this market with the approach of copy trading. So I have lots of educational bots. I have lots of videos to teach people, but I encourage them to modify them. And on the other side, I have these black box bots that no one knows what they're doing, and they're profitable, but no one can front run them because that's another risk.
Yeah. I mean, if you got some special sauce, that's for you. Right. And I think, what you just said there, and everything you took me through today with Bitcoin alone is like that's entertainment, and it's also technically a call a little bit. And it's not like you're saying, "Hey, here's the exact moment." Like you were saying, you were like optimistically bullish about where RSI was right now and that reversal. And yes, it could go lower and my strategy would change then, but I'm sticking to all my rules. And then if it goes higher, I can change it then, but I'm also continuing to stick to all my rules. And I think
Yeah,
people appreciate that, and then they can make the call based on the conviction that they have. Like I might think like, hey Mariano, like you're optimistically bullish. I'm all in, man. I'm seeing this stuff and I'm going to go all in. And that ends up being on me, which I think is important. But your education and your analysis is a tool for someone else to make some decision on their own. And I think that's like more than enough, than trying to give them every single tiny little thing. I can understand that though, especially like as you're going through things that you're thinking, I want to prove that what I am doing is authentic and makes sense. And here's down to the nitty gritty of what I'm doing because I'm now 100% transparent, especially in this industry as a YouTuber. I mean, my God, like the stuff that's out there. that people see in the calls that they make is it's pretty incredible. So I can see that route, but it's, now that you've proven that, it's like I like what you're doing with the copy trade. I like the showcase of what's happening because I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's not only entertainment, but it's educational from just a macro sense. Because like at the end of
Mhm.
the day, that's kind of what we're all doing in the industry. Like people listening to this, we're all looking at Bitcoin and then
Mhm.
we're making our judgment call on everything else based on that, because there's really only ever one or two projects that really stand out that are completely like inversely correlated to Bitcoin during times where Bitcoin's going down. And it's like, it's not even
Yeah.
almost like worth your time to focus on those.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
They are just the outliers. There's always outliers there, and people think, oh yeah, that's gonna run forever. No.
No, never, never. Amazing, man. Well, Mariano, you rock. This was fun. I'm glad that kicking LunarCrush Live off again with you. It's been a minute, so it's great to see you. And again, glad that everything's going really well. And I'm excited. I'm excited for you, man. Everything looks great, and we'll have to do this a little bit more often. Maybe you'll be like a little regular guest on here and come hang out with us and talk about the market, because I had a good time chatting with you.
Yeah, I would love to do that, to give a market update. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I thought we were talking for half an hour, and we are way above 1 hour. So it was really fun. Thanks for inviting me, Joe.
Of course. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Check out Mariano. It's just thetradingparrot.com, right? And then the Trading
Yeah.
Parrot on Twitter,
Yep.
on
Yep.
X, whatever you want to call it.
On Twitter is Trading Parrot. Someone took
Okay.
my did Trading Parrot, but the rest of them are all the Trading Parrots. Yes.
Love it. All right, my man. You rock. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Cheers.
Until next time.